There's just 3 days to go until the start of the second Ashes Test in Brisbane, which will be a day-night match played under lights with the pink ball. England are 1-0 down after losing the first Test in Perth in, well, comprehensive fashion. We can speak live to Sky Sports' Michael Atherton. Very good morning to you. Look, England, they've had plenty of time to lick their wounds, a bit more time than expected. But are you expecting to see a response in Brisbane then, despite, you know, England's historic struggles there when they usually start the tournament?
Yeah, it's not a good ground for England, the Gabba. I'm at the Gabba now. It's about 6:30 in the evening and the lights are on. England are having their first kind of practice session under lights because, as you say, it's going to be a day and night pink ball test, and they don't have a good record in pink ball cricket, and they don't have a good record here at the Gabba. They've not won here since 1986-87. So the omens are not necessarily in their favour, but they have to bounce back. If you go 2-0 down here in Australia, that's the Ashes as good as done, because you don't generally, England don't win that many Test matches down under, and they certainly don't win 3 on the bounce. So it's a massive game, and England will have to bounce back and play rather better than they did in Perth. And if they do, there are still vulnerabilities in this Australian team to exploit. They had their moments in that Perth game. By lunchtime on the second day, they were dominating the game. They had a 75% chance of winning at that point, according to the numbers guys. And then it all went downhill and they lost in 2 sessions. But they'll try and draw on the bits of good news that came out of the Perth game. I hope to play a bit better. Certainly with the bat, they need to bat a whole lot better than they did there, and try and exploit some vulnerabilities in this Australian team.
Look, are there concerns that England might be a bit undercooked playing under the lights after opting not to send frontline players for that warm-up in Canberra?
They were definitely right not to go to Canberra, unquestionably. It's been so hot and humid here in Brisbane. Canberra, very different conditions, slow, low pitch, much cooler weather. Jacob Bethell and Josh Tong, Matthew Potts were the 3 they did send. They've only just flown in. They've only just got here to Brisbane. So if the whole team had been here, that would have given them, if the whole team had gone to Canberra, that would have only given them a couple of days to get acclimatised here in Brisbane. So they definitely made the right decision to stick to their guns and come to Brisbane rather than go to Canberra and get some match practice under lights. I have no doubt that that was the right thing to do. And what happens is when you lose a game like they lost in Perth in 2 days, there's always knee-jerk reaction, and that was the kind of reaction and criticism that came from not going to Canberra. They were never going to Canberra. It was always the Lions that were due to play that game. So I have no problem with England not going to Canberra. I thought they did the right thing.
Yeah. Look, Joe Root questioned the need for day-night tests in a series as big as the Ashes. Do you agree?
Yeah, I was there when Joe Root made that comment. I mean, he wasn't making a tremendously pointed comment at all. He was asked a question and he answered it fairly honestly, and he didn't make a strong point about it. But the point that he was making was, I think, that the Ashes would sell out anyway. This game would be a sellout, whether it was a day game or a day-night game. Originally, day-night cricket was brought in to try and encourage crowds at Test cricket where crowds were not great, at the Test matches where they were not great. That's never the case in Ashes cricket. But as Joe said, pink ball cricket, day-night cricket is an established part of the calendar here now. I think this is the 14th game that Australia will have played under lights in Australia. It's a regular part of the calendar. It's more often than not in Adelaide, where England have played. They played in Hobart, a day-night game as well 4 years ago. This time it's in Brisbane. So it's there. You've got to get on with it, and you've got to try and play better than Australia under lights.
Look, big concern about Mark Wood's fitness. Josh Tong, wicketless for the Lions on Saturday. Well, Matthew Potts did get a couple of wickets. I mean, who gets the nod? As expected, you know, Wood can't play.
Yeah, I don't think Mark Wood will play. He's got a niggle behind his knee. And I suspect they probably were not lining him up for this game anyway. They would have planned to play him in Perth, probably save him for slightly flatter conditions in Adelaide, where the extra pace can be valuable. Here under lights at the Gabba, you know, bowlers that pitch it up and move it. So Josh Tong certainly comes into the equation. I think that's the favoured option. If England play the same balance of team, which is 5 seamers, then Josh Tong would just come in for Mark Wood. But they might play a spinner. As I say, it's been very hot here in Brisbane. You're still going to get 3 and a bit hours under daylight conditions before the lights take effect. Nathan Lyon has played a lot of day-night cricket for Australia. He's taken the second most wickets in day-night cricket behind Mitchell Starc. So we probably expect Nathan Lyon to play. So I don't think a spinner is out of the equation for England. And then do you go with a specialist spinner, Shoaib Bashir, or do you just bolster your batting a little bit with Will Jacks? They've got two options there, and I'm not sure which way they would go. At the moment, I'd say Josh Tongue was favourite to play, but we're still quite a way out from the game. The game is Thursday. We're only, we're 2 or 3 days away, so a lot can change. The pitch can change. It's a bit too early to make the call on the team yet, other than the fact that I don't think Mark Wood will play.
OK, look, better news from this English perspective, because Pat Cummins, Josh Hazlewood, both out of this second test. Do you think England maybe get a greater opportunity to strike back in the series?
Well, they had that opportunity in Perth with no Hazlewood, no Cummins. Cummins is very close to fitness now. There was some thought that even though he wasn't in the squad, it was not completely beyond the realms of possibility that he might sneak into this game. It's highly unlikely. And so England have that opportunity if there's no Hazlewood and no Cummins again. Obviously, two great bowlers missing. Their other bowlers are good bowlers, no question about that, but they're not Cummins and Hazlewood. So that opportunity might present itself for England again, and they're just going to have to bat a whole lot better. I mean, they were bowled out in under 70 overs in both innings at Perth, 70 overs for the match. So, they're going to have to just bat a whole lot better, make clinical decisions about how to play when the ball bounces a bit more, as it does here in Australia, and in particular in Perth and Brisbane, which are the venues for the first two tests. Ball bounces a bit more, and England can't get drawn into playing half-hearted shots outside the off stump. They're going to attack. They're going to be aggressive. That's in their DNA, and that's fine. Playing aggressive attacking cricket is absolutely fine in Australia. There just will come a time, particularly in a pink ball game, where the lights take effect, the ball starts to move, and you might just have to absorb a bit of pressure and sit in and earn the right to attack. And nobody wants to stop England playing attacking cricket, because that's what's got them this far, and they've had some good results doing it. But you just have to leaven that with a bit of intelligence and a bit of practicality at times, a bit of pragmatism.
Look, lots made about England's approach to batting on bouncy Australian wickets. We can expect Australia to obviously have their set plans, but will England have learnt their lesson about being too loose with their shots?
That's the game. As I say, repeat my answer a moment ago. They're going to continue to be aggressive. They should continue to play attacking cricket, because that's the kind of team they are. There's no point in backing away from that now. But you have to pick your moments. Test cricket is a game that ebbs and flows a bit. The conditions won't always be the same. They won't always grant you that freedom to just attack. And sometimes you have to earn the right to attack. And that applies especially in pink ball cricket. It applies especially for the first 20 overs in Australia when the pitches are hard and bouncy. So you just have to, as I say, be pragmatic at times, but I'd stress that, England should continue to play an attacking game, because that's the kind of team they are. Nobody wants to see them retreat into their shells, but they just have to learn from those mistakes in Perth and try and handle themselves a bit better with the bat.